Major sponsors for Ableton On Air include Green Mountain Support Services, empowering people with disabilities to live home in the community. Washington County Mental Health, where hope and support come together. Media sponsors for Ableton On Air include Parkchester Times, Muslim Community Report, www.thisisthebronx.info, Associated Press Media Editors, New York Parrot Online Newspaper, U.S. Press Corps Domestic and International, Anchor FM, and Spotify. Partners for Ableton On Air include Yahad of New York and New England, where everyone belongs, the Orthodox Union, the Division for the Blind and Visually Impaired of Vermont, the Vermont Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired, Central Vermont Habitat for Humanity, and Montpelier Sustainable Coalition. Montefiore Medical Center of the Bronx, Rose F. Kennedy Center of Bronx, New York, Albert Einstein College of Medicine of the Bronx. Ableton On Air has been seen in the following publications: Parkchester Times, www.thisisthebronx.com, New York Parrot Online Newspaper, Muslim Community Report, www.h.com, and the Montpelier Bridge. Ableton On Air is part of the following organizations: the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, Boston, New England chapter, and the Society of Professional Journalists. Welcome to this edition of Ableton On Air, the one and only program that focuses on the needs, concerns, and achievements of the differently able. I've always been your host, Lawrence Seiler. Sorry Arlene is not here today on this television program. Before we get to our guests, we would like to say thank you to our sponsors, Washington County Mental Health, Green Mountain Support Services, and many others, including Montefiore Medical Center, Einstein Hospital of the Bronx, Kennedy Center of the Bronx, Central Vermont Habitat for Humanity, and many, many, many others. So now let's introduce our guest. Today's topic is art and people with special needs as well. Let's introduce Professor Ezequiel Jimenez from Bergen Community College. Ezequiel Jimenez is a New York-based artist currently who lives and maintains his own studio in the residence in Bronx, New York. He received his associate degree in digital arts and design from Bronx Community College, and he's a BA double major in studio art and political science, and his MFA is Master's in Fine Arts from the City University of New York at Lehman College. Ezequiel Jimenez's work, Professor Ezequiel Jimenez's work has been presented in over 35 exhibitions, both nationally and internationally, including New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Mexico, Dominican Republic, and Cuba. My guest, Ezequiel Jimenez, Professor Ezequiel Jimenez, has several honors as well, including the proclamation of the New York Senate 2010, Lehman College Graduate Scholarship 2013, proclamation and distinguished son of Santo Domingo and Dominican Republic 2013, New York City Council citation, which was a plaque in 2012 of special recognition, and the Quinquera in Action, Inc. of the Providence of Citation of Rhode Island. And in 2009, he also got a proclamation from the New York State Assembly and Town of West New York and New Jersey, 2007 certificate. And he's also a member of the American Association of University Professors and a member of the American Federation of Teachers of Higher Education. Welcome, Ezequiel, Professor Ezequiel Jimenez, to Able Then On Air. So glad to have you on our program.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so um, can you what made you become an artist? Let's
Well,
start
so
there.
um, so I made a decision to do art when I was around like 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the reasons for that it was because I found in art a way to express myself without censorships. But and then later I learned that art is a powerful tool to change the way how people see the world for a positive and innovative way.
Okay. Um, how do you you say innovative way, but how do you define your art? I noticed some pictures in the background there, but how what type of art do you really do and how do you define it?
Well, I will define my art as a visual dialogue between curved lines, organic forms, and geometric forms. So often resolving in immediate and monochromatics, explosion of conflicts. So taking in consideration the space and in the space and balance, so dictates the frameworks. So and then in the style of type of style, so I will say my art is a combination of after art with figurativism art.
Hmm. What do you mean by abstract?
Abstract is this kind of artworks which you don't see at the first. What is the definition of the object is not clear when you see at the first, but and then after when you try to search and to figure out what is it, after you dedicate times to
Hmm.
try to figure out, thinking about, and try to finding a small detail to where to start to figure out what is it, and then that is abstract art where you that's kind of art where you don't see the object, the definition very clear.
Hmm.
One of the purpose of the art is to encourage the viewers to try to discover what is
Mm.
the message or what is in the art.
Um, why is this so important? Since you're a professor at Bergen Community College, why is this so important for art in schools? Because you know, for many years they were trying to take art out because of the budget issue.
Yes,
Why is it so important to keep art in the curriculum in schools, especially with
yes. Well,
children and young adults?
yes. Art instructions helps our children with developments of the brain skill, the motor skill, as well also to develop observation, develop to help them to observe us and
Hmm.
to observe the world before they make any decision. Also, encourage the student to think because many mistakes that many people made in the society where we live in today,
Mm.
a wrong mistake, is because people don't think before they ate. But also, all students should have the right to practice art as part of their curriculum education because it's part of their develops as a human being. And
Mm.
especially today, which art is everywhere in
Hmm.
our daily life, so we are opposed to art. Unfortunately, many people do not have the opportunity to figure out then they every day they enjoy art, believe it or not.
Mm.
Because when you're going, for example, to let's say, let's put one just simple example. For example, when you're going to the store to buy a smartphone, cell
Hmm.
phone,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So people going to the store and they don't pick up the first mobile phone or smartphone that they see on the store, right?
Yeah, I remember the old mobile phone. It used to be great,
Exactly.
huge. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but also people are searching for any specific objects
Mm.
or equipment like the cell phone. It's because to satisfy what really they like, right? And then to display a small funds on the store and to satisfy your what you're really looking for, right? The
Yeah.
consumer.
Yeah.
So designers, which today are classified as an artist, they work hard to design, to make a nice design to satisfy the consumers. Okay?
Yeah.
So, and that is art. But when you're watching TV, when you see any advertisement, when you see any furniture, when you see computers, when you see almost everything, designers, artists work hard to create design to people can enjoy by using their equipment. So because sometimes people have the traditional view of art, and the traditional view of art that we have came from the Western cultures. We started during the Renaissance, and then with that
The
view in
Renaissance.
art,
Yeah.
yeah, people believe that art is only drawing, painting, sculpture.
Yeah.
But no, art is more than that, and we're learning that today.
Um, what is your opinion, since you say about the Renaissance, because we had Van Gogh and we also had Frida Kahlo. What is your opinion on special needs and artists and other special needs painters like Frida Kahlo?
And I believe that art is a special gift that people with special needs can develop into. And an example of artist with a special need is Frida Kahlo, but also Stephen Wilshere, a British autistic painter who is very successful in art. He has his own galleries in London, and his art it has a high values in the art market. But also, his gifts consist is that his brains works like a camera. For example, you take him to a tree to any big city, right?
Yeah.
And then after you take him for a trip to that city, for example, for 1 hour or 2 hours, without taking any note, without taking any pictures, right? He can come back to his studio and painting or drawing the landscape with incredible details. And
So,
he is,
for example, you take him to see Statue of Liberty in New York.
yes,
When you come back to his studio, he can draw that with no problem.
exactly. But not only the Statue of the Liberty, but it's also when you take him just to look at the landscapes of the city, because the landscape in the city has a lot of detail, and he can do that. But also Frida Kahlo is another example of artists with special needs, because when she has multiple disabilities, right?
Yeah.
Including polio when she was a child, and also spinal impairment damage product as a car accident,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And her works, it was most a expression of her emotions in pain, as well also her sexuality. So she was this amazing Mexican painter, and she took advantage of the beautiful culture of Mexico, including their color, their folklore. And she expressed all that on her artworks. Most of her artworks, it was self-portrait
Yeah.
about she.
Okay.
So it means art is for everybody, no matter what is his condition.
Okay. So what? Talking about art and mediums, because there's like there's oils, there's coal, there's other things that people use. What type of medium, as far as the oil that you like to use to paint, because it deals with the mood that you're in. So explain the type of paintings you like to do and the type of oil you use and why.
Well, let me tell you this.
Or
So
supplies, yeah.
Yes, I love all types of mediums, including traditional mediums. When I say traditional mediums, I mean pencil, charcoal, acrylics, oil, but also contemporary medium, which is not traditional medium. The many new generation of artists they using today. So what is that non-traditional medium? Anything that you could not imagine, including films,
So
right?
you
Including digital.
can you take a picture of say a statue and paint it from the picture?
Oh, I could do that. The kind of art that I do, for example, I'm not a commercial artist, right?
Yeah.
But the kind of art that I do is demands from me more creativity. Because if I do a painting or drawing from a pictures, it means that I really copying something. So I'm not really putting practicing my creativity. See, but that typically is something that we learn is when we go into the school because it's very important to develop copying too. And there is nothing wrong with that. Okay,
Yeah.
don't take me on the wrong direction on the wrong way because I don't say that people, the artists who do that is something that is wrong, you're not supposed to do. But I say in my specific case, I mean in my case.
Okay. Um, so the art. Well, see. Okay. So we're in Vermont, and Bob Ross is a contemporary was a contemporary artist. Can you describe his art and what is the difference between contemporary art and impressionist that you've spoken about so far?
Yeah. So the thing is, the different style of types of art is like a medicine for doctor. So some doctors specialize on the ears, on the noise, on the eyes, on the heart. Yeah. And then ours is something similar in terms that each artist, they develop their career on one specific style. For example, Impressionism is a style in art,
Yeah.
right? So, and then Ross, he was a landscaper. He was
So
a inventor
he
in
basically did,
landscaping.
yeah, he basically
Yeah,
did trees and mountains and
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. I will say this. He was an innovator because on the way he is starting to educate people in art, if he was not the first one, I believe he was one of them because he used on the TV, the media, to teach people in art, to show people how to painting landscaping. And also, he showed in his art class went all around the world because people watching him. And that means that he was an innovator more than a contemporary or modern artist, right?
Yeah.
So that's mean that everybody can do his own way in the way how they want project their art. And Ross was one of that. He was an innovator on the way how he brings the art education, the classroom through the TV when nobody probably had the imagination to do that, right? He's very well famous around the world just because his idea to teach art through the TV. Yeah, that's I believe he was an innovator
So
on his time.
since we're talking about teaching on television
Yes.
and teaching and mentoring,
Yeah, and let me tell you this. Just let me tell you this. So now with the pandemic, so we went to teach through the different digital platforms, including Zoom. But what does that mean? Then Ross figured out all that situation, all that facts
Ross is
before.
Ross is no longer alive. But I see your point.
Exactly, because many people are still watching and learning learning painting landscape because through Ross art class on TV, because that's still there. He left all the industry, to market his style in his art.
So, since you talk about teaching, why is it important to teach or mentor in art? And yeah, go
Well,
ahead.
as I said before, so teaching in art is very important in the develops of the student,
Mm-hmm.
and as well also on his future careers, because uh, everybody is supposed to have a general or basic backgrounds in cultures,
Mm-hmm.
all right?
Yeah.
So, and then I say before, art encourage or incentivize the student to use the brains, you know,
Mm.
to learn to think
And to be more creative.
and to be creative too. That's
Mm.
another part. And also, another important thing is, so when you learn to think, so you will know how to make decision when you have to make it. Because before we make any decision, the first thing that we have to do is think and figure out what is the best decision in our favors,
And
as
then
well
and
also
then
in the
also
society.
also when you're teaching a student, example, okay, if you tell a student to make a house, to paint a house,
Yes.
in their um, brain, this is what they think the house is.
Well,
They're the artist, but
yeah.
because a house can look different to many people in terms of
Well,
that.
well, that's another thing that I can encourage they also to paint the house, but as not on the traditional way how the house would look like, right?
Yeah.
Because one way how they can be creative is by putting in practice critical thing on see the thing on a different way, which is not the traditional way, and that will encourage and push them to be creative in order how they represent also a specific image. In this case, for example, the house. But I encourage them also to see the world
Mm-hmm.
with of the artworks with an open mind. Okay,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's very important in art too,
Mm-hmm.
and also in our basic lives, especially we live in the United States, a nation with a lot of people with different background,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in our societies, it's very important to show respectful for each culture and for each uh, type of art. And how we can get that just by seeing the world with an open mind. It's mean all the things not necessarily to be exactly how we believe then the thing are.
Mm-hmm. Um, all right. So, um, in terms of art and special needs and everything, can you describe your artwork and how can art be used as therapy?
Well, art in therapy have been used for long, especially in hospital and
Nursing home.
therapeutic center.
Hmm.
So, and they use an art to stimulate the brains. They use art to inspire the person with a special need. They inspire people in a special need to look the world with hopes and to look at the world with another perspective, which is a more positive than another traditional therapist can do,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Okay, so what? Before we get into your career, really, what? Or since we've been talking about your career as an artist, what artist in media or otherwise has inspired art or media? What artist has inspired you?
Okay, so that's a very interesting question because always we started at one point, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then I have few artists then really on different ways of inspiring me. So one of them is Roberto Mata, a Chilean master painters,
Yeah.
as well also of Pablo Picasso. He's from Spain. And then I have a third one, which is a Dominican painter who living in Mexico for many years, and his name is by Fair. And then there are, so if you anyone can go into to online, so search Google other
Well,
browsers.
since you said Picasso, what inspires you with Picasso? The way he paints, or how does that work?
Well, he was a painter as well, so he drew too, and also he's this he creates some pre making too. But as one of my favorite paintings of Picasso is when he's approached the topics of the wars.
Mm-hmm.
So and then he has a lot of artworks there that we can valorate, but also the way how he used the lines and formal element in art to
Mm-hmm.
create artworks, the color, the painting, the painting, on the way how he projected the women on his painting.
Mm-hmm.
That was really also interesting. And also he was an innovator too in art because even if he was not the first in the Cubismo art,
Mm-hmm.
he was, I believe he was the maximum, he created, he is the maximum representation of the Cubism in
Mm-hmm.
art.
Mm-hmm. Uh, okay, so um, how do you, since you're a professor at Bergen Community College, can you explain um, can you explain the motivation to teach you? What do you, how do you motivate your students? Number one, and if anyone wants to become an artist, because I know it's extremely hard to do that sometimes. If someone listening today wants to become an artist, what do they have to do that? What training do they need to have?
Well, uh, everything will depend what kind of artist the person want to be. For example, some people, if someone would like to become a professional artist, even if that person has the gift, I will encourage the person to practice the most they can, as well as going to the school, going to study.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you have a gift or talent, it's much better if you have the opportunity to learn how to organize and develop all that skill that you may have. And the only way how you could do that is by going to the academy and study in art. If you want to become a professional artist, but if you want, because many people they are do art for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, some people can join art just as a hobby or just as an amateur, but they necessarily don't want to go in as a professional.
Mm-hmm.
They can join art by any way they want. But the most important is in art, practice and practice and practice. In reading, studying about art, studying about the art style. Because in art, they receive different schools. The school of the Impressionism, the school of the modern art, the school of traditional art, the school, that's the way how I describe that. So it doesn't necessarily mean that in art, other artists going to describe the
Mm-hmm.
different style in art like that. But I try to illustrate on the best and simple way
Mm.
than any person can understand without necessarily be in the words of the art.
Okay. Um, can you now? I understand that you know you're gonna we're gonna see some images, but Really quick, before we end today's program, let's take a look at Professor Ezequiel Jimenez's work. Let's take a look at this video of his work and his career. Let's take a look. now that we saw a video of your work, what is your future goals as a professional artist, as a professor? So, what is your future goals as an artist?
Well, so my intention and my aspiration and goals in arts is to continue working how hard than I can
Mm-hmm.
in order to approach the different issues that we have in the world today,
Mm-hmm.
right? For example, so climate change and violence issues and all those kind of situations that affect our societies on different ways, positive or negative.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want documenting all those issues present that we have today for the future generation. Because at one point, so we're going to leave this world, all right? And when that will happen, we don't know because God is the only person, or not the only person, is the only unipotent who know when he going to call us. All right?
Mm-hmm.
And the only way how we can documentary how we live, and the way how we're going to allow future generations, 50, 100 years old, how was our life is through visual history. Because remembers, so we know about our past, the people in our past, is because they documentary how was the way of life and that's a specific moment. For example, I don't know if you remember, but is it is important to know, everybody knows. So the first way of communication then the human being had, it was art. Before the language, in the oral language, then we know the way that we have to communicate today,
Mm.
it was through image.
Mm.
And the proof are there.
Yeah.
And the altimeter curves in frames in Spain,
Mm.
all those images were documentaries by artists in the prehistory of the human life.
Mm-hmm. Um.
So then it means that art is more than just beauty. Art is more just than something to enjoy. But art is to documentary event, times, and different geographic point.
Um. Now you're in social media, and one thing we didn't talk about really quick. I understand you're also a media artist at place I used to work for, BronxNet Television. Can you explain a little bit of the media art that you do for them, and how does it work within what you're doing now?
Yes, unfortunately, I have the opportunity to, as a non-traditional artist or modern artist, I have the opportunity to make the transition from traditional art to contemporary art. That including digital art, multimedia artist,
Mm-hmm.
and also so graphic designer. And then so I have the opportunity to be also collaborating and working for Bronzenet Television as a digital multimedia editor and artist.
Mm-hmm.
And then I dealing with a multimedia project where I have the opportunity to apply some graphic designs, editing audios, editing videos, and also editing voiceovers. And then I have my responsibility is to coordinate and ensemble all those elements on the digital and multimedia art to put it working together
Mm-hmm.
in a project with this focus in people with special needs and visual impairment.
Ah, okay. Um, so since you said that, what example? So you've been working with uh, people with special needs and teaching them art at BronxNet. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I do because Bronson partnerships with public school in New York City,
Hmm.
and then those
District
public
70.
school.
Well, District 75 is the largest district
Uh,
for special education in New
yeah, I
York
don't
City?
remember the district number, but I know is a school with a student with a special need.
Yeah.
And then I have the opportunity to educate in digital graphics to a student with autistic student,
Mm-hmm.
and others special issues. And that really is, it is amazing because it is an opportunity to help people who really need help, and people who really need an instructor who are sensible to their conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And also gave me the opportunity to join, then everybody can learn and can develop their potential,
Mm-hmm.
even if they have a special need.
Mm-hmm. Well, where are you in social media, and where can people find your website?
Okay, it's very easy to find me for example, my website is
Mm-hmm.
www.ezequieljimenez.com. And then I have a social media also on Facebook, which is Ezequiel Jimenez Art,
Mm-hmm.
and so in Facebook, and also I have an Instagram. You can find me on Instagram, Ezequiel Jimenez Art,
Mm-hmm.
and I have my YouTube channel too, which is Ezequiel Jimenez R2. It's very easy to find me. If you put my name, you can write in painter or artistic Ezequiel Jimenez, and then you will find me right away.
Okay. We would like to thank Professor Ezequiel Jimenez of Bergen Community College, media artist, professional artist, freelance artist, artists all around, or as they say, artists in residence.
Yeah, thank you so much
In New
to
York.
you for giving me the opportunity.
Yes, we would like to thank you for joining us on this edition of Ableton On Air. For more information on Professor Ezequiel Jimenez's work, you can go you can just Google Ezequiel Jimenez
A
and
painter or artist.
painter or artist, or EzequielJimenez.com, and you will find his art. And for those who want to find out more information on Ableton On Air, you can go to www.orcamedia.net. Again, we would like to thank Professor Ezequiel Jimenez of Bergen Community College, art professor and professional artist, for joining us on this edition of Ableton On Air. Again, Arlene is not here today, but thank you to Ezequiel for joining us. I'm Lauren Seiler. See you next time on the next edition of Ableton On Air. Major sponsors for Ableton On Air include Green Mountain Support Services, empowering people with disabilities to live home in the community. Washington County Mental Health, where hope and support come together. Media sponsors for Ableton On Air include Parkchester Times, Muslim Community Report, www.thisisthebronx.info, Associated Press Media Editors, New York Parrot Online Newspaper, U.S. Press Corps Domestic and International, Anchor FM, and Spotify. Partners for Ableton On Air include Yachad of New York and New England, where everyone belongs, the Orthodox Union, the Division for the Blind and Visually Impaired of Vermont, the Vermont Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired, Central Vermont Habitat for Humanity, and Montpelier Sustainable Coalition. Montefiore Medical Center of the Bronx, Rose F. Kennedy Center of Bronx, New York, Albert Einstein College of Medicine of the Bronx. Ableton On Air has been seen in the following publications: Parkchester Times, www.thisisthebronx.com, New York Pirate Online Newspaper, Muslim Community Report, www.ace.com, and the Montpelier Bridge. Ableton On Air is part of the following organizations: the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, Boston, New England chapter, and the Society of Professional Journalists.